Well, welcome to Marking the End Times. I'm Mark Hitchcock, and as always, it's great to have you with us. It's exciting to live in these days in which we live and see so many things happening today that foreshadow exactly what the Bible predicts will happen in the end times. What I want to talk about today is the mark of the beast. This is something that's out there now in the public square, and people are talking about it more than ever. I want to talk about a recent video by a man named Joe Rogan on YouTube. Now, I want to talk about Joe Rogan, and I'm not endorsing Joe Rogan and his podcast. It's pretty raw, and he has a lot of foul language there. But he said some things a couple weeks ago on his podcast that on YouTube that are astounding about the mark of the beast. And Joe Rogan has over 15 million subscribers to his YouTube channel. He had a long discussion about the mark of the beast and the coming cashless society. He even read a long passage from Revelation chapter 13. So I want to talk about that and also relate that to something that's really coming online now called the Amazon One, this biometric technology that's out there. So I want to talk about those two things and really talk about what is the mark of the beast. What exactly is the Bible referring to when it mentions the mark? Now, in a bit, we'll go into the subscriber-only section, and I'll answer some questions. One question is about preterism, about people who believe that the events of the book of Revelation have already happened, that they happened back in the first century, around the events of the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. There's a question about the mark of the beast. Now, we're going to answer a lot of that here during this program, but there's a question about that. Another great question about, will we be judged at the judgment seat of Christ for things we did before we came to faith in Christ? Well, that's a really important thing, I think, for us to understand. And another question about if we believe in the pre-trib rapture, how do we explain Matthew 24, verse 9, which talks about believers being persecuted during the tribulation period. So we want to answer those questions a little bit in the subscriber-only section, but I want to talk about the mark of the beast. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Joe Rogan is a comedian. He's a podcast host. He's a UFC commentator, the Ultimate Fighters competition. He's a commentator there. And as I said a bit ago, look, this is not an endorsement of Joe Rogan's program. A lot of raw, rank language that he often uses. But again, as I said, he's got 15 million subscribers. He's a major influencer in our culture today and an unbeliever. And a couple of weeks ago, he had a guest on with him named Duncan Trussell, who's a stand-up comic, a writer, an actor. And they discussed for quite some time how a cashless society is a precursor to enforcing the mark of the beast. So you have two people here, unbelievers, talking about a cashless society. And now that's going to be used to invade people's privacy and control their lives. And Joe Rogan, during his program, asked, how long is it going to be before there's a cashless society? And Dawson Trussell responded, I hope forever. Because he said, when that comes, we're going to lose our privacy. And it's going to remove the ability to trade currency in a public way. And when that happens, he said, your life is going to be controlled and it's going to be monitored. And you won't be able to do anything without the mark. Now, this led Joe Rogan to ask this question. He said, how's the mark of the beast described in the Bible? He says, I think we're onto something here. And then Joe Rogan got the Bible and he read Revelation chapter 13, verses 11 to 18. This is a section that describes the coming false prophet. This will be the second in command or the lieutenant of the coming Antichrist who's going to make an image to the Antichrist. We call this the abomination of desolation. And he read this live on his broadcast, this entire section. Now, after he's reading this, somebody, I guess, sends him a note and tells him that the word mark, because he's trying to understand what the mark of the beast is. Somebody sends him a note, and the Greek word is the word charagma. And he's trying to say that word, and he kind of says it wrongly several times, but he's trying to pronounce this Greek word for what's happening in the end times with this mark. And he says this, this is too similar to exactly what it says. He's saying, look, what we see today in the world is far too similar to exactly what it says in the Bible. And then he begins to go on a little bit and talk about, what the word charagma means, of a tattoo or some kind of etching or something like that. And then one of the things I thought was most captivating to me in this whole podcast that I watched quite a bit of is at one point this statement was made: it's so scary to lose the privacy. In other words, this is scary, all these things that are coming here in the future. Now, I listened to all of that, and again, listening to a well-known unbeliever talking on here at length about the mark of the beast and reading the book of Revelation. And then just this last week, these unbelievers who are making this connection between a cashless society and the rise of the Antichrist and the mark of the beast, on the heels of that, Amazon's new Amazon One technology is really going gangbusters now. It's going to go nationwide. There's an article in CBS News that says Amazon releases new cashless pay-by-palm technology that requires only a hand wave. Again, this came out here just a couple of weeks ago. And this is talking about the use of biometric technology, which again is part of this cashless society that Joe Rogan was talking about. Let me read a little bit from this article, but it's referring here to a palm scanning technology. And here's what the article says. Amazon is taking cashless payments to another level. In a new rollout, the tech giant is giving customers another contactless way to pay for groceries with their palms. In a statement Thursday, Amazon announced that the palm recognition service called Amazon One will be used for payment, identification, loyalty membership, and entry at over 500 Whole Foods and Amazon Fresh locations across the nation by the end of the year. Instead of pulling out a credit card or even a phone for Apple Pay, subscribing customers will simply have to hover their palms over an Amazon One device. So a little kiosk that's there. That's all you have to do in order to pay. Now, for decades, Bible prophecy teachers have been saying there's going to be a cashless society, because the only way that the Antichrist can control the world economy is for there not to be cash. As long as there's cash, people can use cash to be operating in a way that can be undetected. No one's going to know what's happening. So Bible prophecy teachers have said for years there's got to be this cashless society. And many of us looked at the smartphone saying this is going to be the key to this cashless society. You'll just use your smartphone for everything. Well, now you don't even need a phone. You don't even need a phone. All you need is just your hand. So it says here, this technology is already available at 200 locations across 20 U.S. states, including Arizona, California, Idaho, Oregon, and Mississippi. Panera Bread has adopted the technology so that customers can simply wave their hands above the device in order to pull up their My Panera loyalty account information and pay for their meals. At Coors Field Stadium in Colorado, customers trying to purchase alcoholic beverages can hover their palms over the Amazon One device to verify that they're 21 or older. It's being used now in several different convenience stores. It's being used at Hollywood casinos in Detroit. It's also being used at many airport travel retailers. Now, in another article I read, it says this means you won't need your wallet, purse, or even your phone to complete transactions. You just need your palm. So basically, this turns your hand into a personal credit card. Now, the same article goes on and describes this, says, how does this work? You pre-enroll via your Amazon account using a credit or debit card. Next, you head over to Amazon One palm reading device to make a scan. Now, this is powerful here. It says, the algorithm matches unique elements of your palm with your account information. And it uses the image of your palm, but also incorporates the underlying vein structure. So it's not just your palm, it's the vein structure under your palm. Now, I was interested in this because, when we think about the mark of the beast, you think about the right hand and the forehead. I wondered, do you have to use your right hand for Amazon One? Most of the pictures I saw of people using it was their right hand, but I noticed a few was their left hand. So it's not a right hand only. But this is what we see happening here in this new technology. Now, It says here a palm is the safest biometric to use because you cannot identify a person by it. The tech company assured customers that their palm data will not be shared with third parties, including in response to government demands. Well, in the future, someday, all this is going to be taken over by the Antichrist as he's going to rule the world and rule this economy. But again, I hark back to what was stated in that interview, in that podcast, YouTube video with Joe Rogan. He says it's so scary. He says, look, all of this is so scary. Now, when I think about all of this, now it's important to understand that these technologies that we're talking about here, these Amazon One or different chip technologies or whatever these things are, biometrics, these things are not the mark of the beast, but they're part of the infrastructure he will use to control the world economy. So he's going to use these things, I think, alongside the mark of the beast to control the world. So he'll use every kind of technology he can to control, to monitor, to surveil people's lives and their finances. Because when you control people's money, you control their life. So all of this is part of the continued setup and setting of the stage for the global economy of the Antichrist. So there has to be a cashless society. Now, let me just close by saying this. People want to know, well, what is the mark? 9 times in the New Testament, you have the word charagma, the word that's used for this mark. 8 of the times it's in the book of Revelation. The only time it's not in Revelation that it's used in the New Testament is Acts 17, verse 29, which says gold or silver that's graven by art or etched or formed by art. So it's referring to something being etched. So the number 666, this charagma or mark of the beast, is going to be a mark, an etching, a tattoo, a brand, whatever it is, upon the right hand or the forehead of people during the tribulation period. And it's going to be instituted at the midpoint of the 7-year tribulation, when the Antichrist rules the world politically, economically, and religiously. And it says in Revelation chapter 13 that it's the number of a man, 666, and it's the number of his name. So in both Greek and Hebrew, the letters of the alphabet have a numerical value associated with them. So when the Antichrist appears, his name will equal 666 when you add up the numerical value of the letters of his name. Now, I'm sure you could look today and find all kinds of people whose names equal 666. But that's jumping the gun to do that. He's not going to be revealed until after the rapture. But it says that you can calculate this so people will know because his name will equal 666. That's the mark of the beast. So Amazon One and chip technology and biometrics are not the mark of the beast, but they'll be utilized by the Antichrist and brought alongside of that to make people take his mark. So when people take the mark of the beast, they'll literally be taking the name of the Antichrist on their right hand or forehead. So it's going to be a pledge of allegiance, a loyalty oath to the Antichrist that they now belong to him, that he owns them. And that's going to be the force of this during the time of the tribulation period. And if people don't take the mark, they're going to be shut out of the worldwide economy. So what we see today, it's all here, it's all in place. All that has to happen is the rapture. One of these days, the curtain of the end times will go up when the rapture takes place, and the Antichrist will rise, and the mark is going to engulf the whole world. And again, God didn't tell us these things to scare us, but he gave these things to us but to prepare us. I hark back to what was said during the Joe Rogan YouTube. It's so scary. Well, it's not to make us anxious, but to make us alert and aware. And so, For those of us who know the Lord, we see these things and it foreshadows the fulfillment of prophecy of the coming cashless society and the mark of the beast. It's a major signpost towards the soon coming of Jesus Christ. You and I need to make sure that we're ready. Well, let's go to the subscriber only section now. We'll answer these questions about the preterist view of the book of Revelation, talk a little bit more about the mark of the beast. We'll also answer a question about will we be judged for things before we came to Christ at the judgment seat of Christ. So if you're not a subscriber, go to endtimes.com for $7 a month. You can become a subscriber and have access to all kinds of great content. But let's go into that question and answer session now.